Recemos por el clamor de la tierra. Si tomamos la temperatura del planeta, nos dirá que la tierra tiene fiebre. Y se encuentra mal, como cualquier enfermo. Pero nosotros escuchamos este dolor, escuchamos el dolor de los millones de víctimas de las catástrofes ambientales. Los que más sufren las consecuencias de estos desastres son los pobres, los que se ven forzados a dejar su casa por inundaciones, olas de calor o sequías. Hacer frente a las crisis ambientales causadas por el hombre, como el cambio climático, la contaminación o la pérdida de la biodiversidad, pide respuestas no solo ecológicas, sino también sociales, económicas y políticas. Tenemos que comprometernos en la lucha contra la pobreza y la protección de la naturaleza, cambiando nuestros hábitos personales y los de nuestra comunidad. Oremos para que cada uno de nosotros escuche con el corazón el clamor de la tierra, el clamor de las víctimas de las catástrofes ambientales y del cambio climático, comprometiéndonos personalmente a cuidar el mundo que habitamos.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us in this spiritual conversation hour. This evolution of the conversation hour will focus on supporting the PWPN according to the Pope's monthly prayer theme. Now, PWPN stands for the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network, which we are proud to be part of it. Every month, the Pope has got a certain theme, and our conversations, whereby we invite three panelists right across the church, whether they are priests or they are lay ministers, to come and share their views on 3 rounds of questions. And each panelist will be given a certain number of time for them to share their views. So let us dive into our session for this evening. So this evening, we're going to talk about the theme for the month of September, which is actually for the cry of the earth. And during this month, we will also like to pray that each of us will hear and take to heart the cry of the earth and the victims of natural disasters and climatic changes, and that all of us will undertake to personally care for the world in which we live. This is the Pope Francis' prayer, and we join him in this prayer because each of us are stewards of this planet Earth, and it's our duty to share, to care, not only for each other, but for the creatures, for the trees, for everything of what God has created. So let us go into our sharing session. Like I mentioned, we'll have 3 rounds of sharing. And I'll take this opportunity now to introduce to you very briefly on the 3 people that are invited to sit in this panel and to share their views. We have the first rose among the thorns. We have Ida Chin, right? Yeah, okay. Ida Chin, and she's actually comes from, represents the AOHD, right? And one of the things that she does is she's also the coordinator of the women's group, and also a member of a committee member of the Creation Justice Ministry. Okay, you can add on later, Ida. Okay, and next one we have we're zooming all the way from Thailand. Okay, we have Ben Lourdesamy. Now Ben is actually somebody who's very close to nature, something that's very close to his heart, right? And he calls himself the Eco-Sophie. Eco-Sophie. What Eco-Sophie? What Ben you used to call yourself?
Eco-Sophie Guide.
Eco-Sophie Guide. Okay, yeah. Anyway, he's a Malaysian also. Even though he stays in Thailand, he comes from Church of St. Ignatius, in fact, in PJ. And last but not the least, okay, a very experienced man who's very, very involved in AOHD, especially in the Creation Justice Ministry, is my good friend, Mr. Ronald Hor. Now, Ronald and I used to be communion ministers. I think you are still there. You're still there, right? In Church of St. Ignatius, PJ. Okay, so let's get into action. So the first thing that we're going to do now is we're going to ask our members of the panel to share their views. Now, you have noticed that the world has changed tremendously, okay? And it has affected climate changes, and the Pope has held this very close to his heart, and he has shared that in the video that we just saw, okay? So I would like to invite our panelists, right, to share their views of how the video has impacted them. Do they agree with it? How do they find it? What can we do to enhance further, right? Or add a bit more value to what the Pope has shared. Okay, now under round 3, you'll have more time to say, because that's where you come up with your own proposal, right? So on this part of it, we want to know that what are the challenges actually that we are facing, right? Challenges. Do you agree with the Pope, his concern, his cry for us to take care of the earth? And we have given 3 minutes each to share. So I'm going to start with Ronald. Ronald, would you like to take the stage now and share your views?
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. I think the video that was shown was actually quite impactful, because it actually shows the devastation, on the people, as well as the environment. And I think it's quite rightly and very timely that the Pope is actually drawing and pushing the agenda of to care for the environment. Okay, because I think we have been for a while taken for granted, things that we use, in terms of pollutions, in terms of emissions of carbon and all those things. But I think the fact that with the what the Pope is trying to tell us, I think we are more basically conscious of what's happening. It's so-called make us think about what our actions are and how was the impact on the environment. Okay, so like I look at the video was actually fantastic. It tells you about the fact that when we don't take care of Mother Nature, then we really have to pay for the wrath of it. And you can see that the power of the wind, and the ability to basically wiped out anything that along the path. Okay, so I think we do owe a strong responsibility to not only do what we can, but I think we should also create awareness to a lot of other people who probably do not see it that way. That they take for granted that climate has changed, it's become hotter, like the Pope says. It's actually a fever, right? I mean, the increase I think now is about plus 14 or 15. That's what the temperature is. So actually, it's really crossed the warning level. And then I think that's the reason why we can see that more and more typhoon, more and more destruction, right? And I think in Penang itself today, the tree came down, right? It was uprooted. So it just that brings home to the fact that we have a duty to take care of this common home that we are all living in, and that's what I look at it, that the message by the Pope is actually very timely, very timely. Okay, and the impact of that. In fact, there are more videos that are even worse than the one that you showed, but I think that was good enough as a starter. Okay, thanks, Greg. I'll pass it to the second person.
Okay, Ida, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with Ronald that the video was very impactful to show us what is happening around the world. But other than what is happening around the world, we also must look at what is happening in our backyard. Let me share with you my personal experience with disaster. I know of a person, she's a Malay lady who sells kueh. She lives in Puchong. And during one of our torrential rain, her whole house was flooded and her kitchen collapsed. And she has a husband who drives the Grab. So by having the kitchen collapse, and she's a kueh seller, she lost all her income. The husband couldn't go out to work. Everything was gone. And she was pregnant at that time. She was going to deliver, I think, in about 3 months' time during then. Yeah, the kid has grown up now. So what happened is that everything was gone, in sekelip mata lah, what we say. And there were people who went to help them, the Zichi Society. I'm sure you all heard of the Zichi Society. Whenever there's disaster, they're there first. So not the Catholics, but this group of people went to help. And that's how I know about this lady, because one of my friends is part of a Zichi Society. But after that, what my friend did was telling us about what happened to this lady and telling us what kind of kueh she sells. Because after her kitchen collapsed, the house owner asked her to shift to another house, knowing that how, her livelihood is on selling things like this. So my friend told us about what kueh she sells. So what we did was that I created a few rounds of group buys in my parish so that we can actually add on to her income. And the husband was the one to deliver, although we could go and get it, but still, her husband was the one who delivered so that we can give him a bit of money. And this whole thing happened in Puchong, near IOI. And if you see the buildings around IOI, the development there, it is quite obvious that we have taken over the land there. A land which was last time not like that, most probably was jungle-like and things like that. We have taken over everything, and most probably what happened in her house is caused by all this development, which we think are helping the country, helping people. But we have to think also, all this development is in the prime areas which they develop so much, and the cost of those housing, those buildings and everything is so expensive. It is not for the poor. Who suffers? The poor. And I agree with Greg that it is us, who are responsible to take care of everyone, because this earth is borrowed. We came here without anything. We're going to leave without anything. It is a borrowed earth. So we need to make sure that it is livable for our future. Another thing I'd like to share is another impact was someone was talking about how we are polluting our waters, polluting the earth. And he was showing me that if they were showing us like that if we continue to live how we live, our next generation will not have clean water. They will not have proper food. They will have difficulties finding food. And they showed us the water that is polluted, which our children have to drink next time. It was murky and brown. And I couldn't picture my 2 children having to live like that and having to live with synthetically modified food. So that was actually the biggest impact on me, to make sure that I changed my lifestyle, my children, my family changed their lifestyle. So, things like this, we are responsible for what happens. We are responsible for our future. So we must make sure that what we do today is answerable for the future. We cannot steal from the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ida. Thank you very much. Can we move on to Ben? Ben, your views?
Thank you, Greg. And thank you, Ida, for sharing that wonderful story. And I just want to add on to what Ida has shared with us. Now, a good example is IOI, where it is built, right? It is very close to the Klang River, correct? And now, in the Western world, they always create a buffer zone between the river and the city. The buffer zone has to be a natural biodiversity corridor, right? Now, we live in the tropical rainforest, correct? And what has happened is we completely, the whole world, not only Malaysia, right, has cleared up so much forest. And what forests basically do, act as a sponge, together with the soil. So no matter how much rain falls, it will slowly seep through the soil, whereby the plants will absorb some and release the balance into the river. But if we keep on creating concrete jungles along the rivers, what's going to happen, right? So maybe now you want to share the slides. Ida, thank you.
Hang on now.
So just to share with you, these are the major causes for global warming, right? So as you can see, fossil fuel is a big contributor. Agriculture is another big contributor, actually one of the biggest, right? And the rest. Next, please. Now, if you look at food production, this is all we are eating and how much of forest has gone. So 41% of deforestation is because of animal, right? Then the next biggest, of course, is oil. So everything is related to our lifestyle or so-called living. Yeah. Next slide, please. And you can get all this data from the internet. Now, just to share with you why there's a 10,000 years ago and today. Now, if you look at 10,000 years ago, there was only about 1% of human beings and 99% of nature was wildlife or biodiversity. Click again, please, Ida. Now, they have found out that actually 10,000 years ago that we actually started farming. And from that time onwards, prior to 10,000 10,000 years ago, we had 71% of the world forested with biodiversity. But today, we are only 29%, right? And look at what has happened today. We are 32%. Wildlife has become 1%, or nature has become 1%. And of course, livestock is 67%. Next slide, please. We produce all those food, but yet we waste so much. This is what we are doing. This is for the whole world, yeah? I think all of us do this also, So sometimes we have to reflect ourselves. Are we doing the right things? Next slide, please. Now, Ronald was explaining about, the temperature and all that. So this is what happens when the temperature rises, right? So at the rate we are going, I think all of you know that there are many little islands that have already gone underwater. Cities, 70% of the world's population actually live along water bodies. So if we continue to do what we are doing, this is what's going to happen. Okay, thank you for the slide, Ida. So I think coming back to the video, it's I was always hoping that there had to be some iconic personality to push for this, and thank God the Pope has done this. And one of the key things in that video for me is not the flooding and this and that, the bees. Why did they put the bees there? Today, the world's bees are dying. The minute the bees die, all the bees die, 70% of nature dies. And when 70% of nature dies, because there's no pollination, all right? Don't look at the honey or the pollens. If there's no pollination, we don't have food to eat. right? So these are the key things that I love about the video. That was the message. That for me, that was the message. I don't know if, the world can see it that way, right? So thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Very interesting.
Was that 3
insights.
minutes?
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Anything will cut. Don't worry. All right. So anyway, it was beautiful that all of you all shared something based on the videos and how the videos are actually very real. It's like what Aida said, it's in our own backyard, right? We see this happening. And what I find interesting in your sharing is that you all fully agree with the video because you are for yourself seeing things with your own eyes. And I'm sure your sharings just now would have touched your co-panelists. So we'll go to round 2 now to see what are the things that really touch you, why it touches you, and maybe you'd like to elaborate. We have 2 minutes to do that. Okay, I'm cutting out 2 minutes. So we start with Ben. We're going to start with Ben, Ida, and Ronald. So Ben,
Why
you go
me?
first. Yeah.
All right. Now, I think all of us know what sustainable development goals are. There are 16, but they normally put 17. The 17th one is supposed to cover all the 16. Now, out of the 16, I only am bothered about 4 of them, right? Number 6, number 13, number 14, and number 15, right? So we talk about triple bottom line because I was in the corporate world for 22 years. So I think for those who understand, who come from the business world, there's something called triple bottom line, which is basically profit, people, and planet, right? So now the four items of sustainable development goal is planet, right? 8 out of the 16 are people and 4 are actually profit, right? That is my how shall I say, I break it down that way. So basically, without economic society cannot advance, right? We agree on that. Without people, without social systems, people cannot develop, correct? Now, the 4 items that I said out of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is planet, without an ecosystem, everything collapses, right? So that is the key point that people have to kind of realize. And I think all of us know what a tipping point is. I think you know what a tipping point is. And the planet is actually slowly coming to that tipping point. The minute that passes, it's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. They have to use cables to hold it. If not, it's going to collapse, right? So that's what I would like to share with
Thanks, Ben.
the
We'll
panel.
move on to Ida. Ida, what is it that moved you concerning what was said by Ronald and Ben from their sharing?
Okay, from the sharing, I think that one of the main impact that I had was that Ben and Ronald and I have the same idea that if we same thoughts, that if we continue to live how we live, it's not going to happen. The world is going to go downward. But we have to be responsible. I think that all of the 3 of us also said that we have to be responsible for what we do, responsible to create awareness among other people. When I talked about the poor being affected, it is not very easy to be environmentally friendly because sometimes it's very expensive. So, things like this, no matter what, we still need to get the message out there for everybody to practice like this. Another thing that Ben said was that he was looking out for someone iconic personality to push for and the care for the environment, which is so true. Previously, when I go to church, it's like go to church, go home, and that's it. everything is in church and that's it. It doesn't come out to my life and it doesn't touch. But with the Pope's encyclical letter on Laudato Si, talking about care of a common home, and his exhortation on Laudato Deum, telling us, that we might be a bit too late already. Laudato Si is like encouraging us, inviting us to do something. But in Laudato Deum is telling us, hey, you better do something that, it's like a headmaster telling you behave, So like what the Ben said, we need somebody iconic to come out and do this. And his letters are not only for Catholics, it's for anyone who is interested in this. Yeah. And what Ronald said about the wind, very destructive, it is so true that if really whatever we do, if we just continue, like what Ben is saying as well, that if we remove all the trees along the riverbanks, and then the sponge are gone, everything is gone. Yeah. So that is the impact, and I'm so glad to be in this together, to know that there are people who are with the same thoughts and minds, and who are so passionate to move forward, to do something, and to make sure that we get the message out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. Okay, Ronald, your views on the other two panelists?
Yeah, I think the key thing that I like what Ben say is, I think a lot of people forgot the importance of the loss of the biodiversity that we are experiencing, especially the bee that he talks about, because actually, they play such an important role in the whole ecological process, but we don't actually appreciate them, right? And I think for people to really appreciate, I think sometimes they must reach the point where they feel it themselves, because to them that, it's okay, we talk about the impact on the poor, like what Ida talks about, the lady in Puchong. But unfortunately, a lot of the people still says, well, it happens to them, it doesn't happen to us. I think sometimes we have to let them feel it. That's why, like I say, you have that uprooted trees today in Tanjung Bunga, and then you have the one that fell near Concord when somebody died, and then the flooding that's happening, and also you remember the case where is it Father Farm, organic farm, where a few people died in the camping because of landslides. I think when disaster happens, I think that's where people will ponder and think that, it is quite close at home. It's not something that been seen or on the TV or the social media. I think that is, important that what Ida says. This is Puchong. Puchong is not far from us, okay? And I think that's why I think important for us to think about how we can help to do what we can. Unfortunately, like what Pope Francis says, really the one that can have really a positive result is the big international corporations and the politicians. But having said that, we must do whatever we can, And I think the point that Ben raised about the development in IOI and all those things, I think this is a problem where the corporate world is. They are trying to have the three pillars that we talk about: sustainable development. Now, how are they going to have economy while not destroying the planets and making sure that the people are okay? I think that is a real struggle, for any society who wants progress. And I think something that is real is a challenge, but we have to see whatever things we can do, however small it is, to bring that home, that, hey, one day it can happen to us, the tree can fall onto our car or ourselves, so I think it will happen. There's positive, to me, there's hope, although it's not all doom and gloom, but I think the fact that Pope has come out, and I hope that when people realize the connections between our spiritual life and the care of the world, the environment, I think then people will be more active in taking action. At the moment, it's like, well, it's an environment thing, and well, this is our fate. What has it got to do with it? But until they see that there is a connection between our faith, what we were given to take care of the environment, as in Genesis, it talks about the fact that we are supposed to till the land and take care of it. I think when that point, when people realize that, I think they will do something, but we have to start small, even at our own household. Yeah, okay. Oh, is it frozen? The internet? Greg? I think the connection.
Yeah, the connections. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Greg is sleeping.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you once again, Ronald and Ida and Ben. I'm really am very excited just hearing you all. You all are full of passion and you all just want to do something for the good of planet Earth. Okay. So we'll come to this third round now, whereby you have heard each other. What are your actionable and inspirational takeaways, right? You all come from different background, from AOHD and from this eco-friendly, loving person that Ben is, right? What is it that what is it that you say can inspire, can encourage, can empower each other so that we'll take heed of God's command to be stewards of planet Earth? That's what Ronald mentioned, Genesis 2. Okay, they mentioned Genesis, but it's Genesis 2:15. That's what we are entrusted to be stewards of God's creation. So I'm going to start with Ida first, right? What can you inspire us and tell us what we can do, actionable plans?
Okay, but before I tell you how I would like to inspire you, I would like to just say that, despite all what we have said, everything sounds so morbid, like if that's it, it's going to be the end of the world, we're all going to go down. But I think Pope Francis also reminds us that we must continue to hope, to really hope, because to say there's nothing to hope for would mean exposing humanity, especially the poorest, to the worst impacts of climate change. This he said in Laudato Deum number 54. Yes. Because if we don't do anything and we just sit down and just lament, everything is not going to move. It's going to go downhill. Yeah. And as Christians, our motivation, as Catholics, our motivation is to respond. Our response must be hope-filled, because we all know that our risen Christ reconciles with all creatures to himself. So, because of that, we must continue to plod on. We must continue to hope. Okay. Okay. So there are actually many ways that we can tackle climate change, like what Ronald said. The big corporation might bigger, more obvious, impact on the environment. But I also think that as individuals, we also can do our own part, because it is like the ripple effect, that once we do something, it will ripple on to others as well. So let me share with you what I do personally as a mother, as a wife, and at work as well. My friends all know that I am environmentally friendly. My husband put a sticker on my water container, Mak Kau Hijau. It's supposed to be, I don't know, it sounds derogatory, but I find that it's a compliment because I really hijau. So what I do is that, like Ben said, if you saw his slide, that beef is one of the main contributors to destroying the environment. So I rarely buy beef, very rare, maybe once a year, because my daughter loves beef. But as far as possible, because of how cows are farmed, because of how the farmers are exploited, so I try not to buy beef. I definitely go for local produce from local farmers to reduce carbon footprint. And at the same time, also that to support the local vendors and the farmers. I tell my veggie men that I don't want vegetables and fruits that come by aeroplane. So, because they're all Cantonese speaking, my Cantonese not that good. So I say, I don't want them on the aeroplane. So that's how I explain to them. I bring all my own containers to market, even for meat, for fish, even for eggs. If I forget my container for eggs, I don't care about the price. I will go for the one that comes in the cardboard cartons. And when I buy veggie, I make sure they're not in plastic bags. If the most that I can take is because the roots are dirty, so it's newspaper, things like this. And home cleansing products, I go for biodegradable, if as far as possible. It's not easy looking for biodegradable stuff here. You need to pay a bit for it, but I try my best. We do recycling at home. We do biocomposting. I live in a condominium. I can't compost, so I bring my stuff over to a place that accepts waste. We constantly, my husband and I constantly look out for local vendors who are struggling. And even though sometimes the product might not be something that we want, like those people who sell the mango at the traffic lights, we just get them. Sometimes we also doubt if these people are genuine, but we always think that it is better that we are at this side, that we are able to give, rather than be at the other side where we have to think and scheme on how to get things from people, so we are actually better. Although, it is just one person doing stuff like this, one whole family doing stuff like this, but from my starting to changing of lifestyle, it has trickled down to my husband, to my children. They are also very conscious, very aware on recycling, on what they buy, what they use. Even clothes, we go for pre-loved clothes, and we stop and think first, do we need it before we buy? So basically, I think it would come down with maybe 3 points that I would say that we need to live on to make sure that the environment is sustainable for our future generation. The first one is to live simply, to be very simple in our living, to pray for our world and the people in it. And the next one is to stand up against climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. Ronald, your wisdom?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think what Ida says is true. I mean, we must have hope. I know we must have hope that that things will get better, because the way I look at it, the lifestyle we have basically adopted, okay, is due to the advancements of technology. Okay, that's why we have all the plastics, the papers, and all those things, and the carbon, people flying from one end to the other end. But I also believe that the technology, will in time also be the savior of our environment. So to me, it's not all doom and gloom. There is, human being, we are very wise, but of course, at the moment, the society is very consumeristic. We are everything is driven, buy. But that is because of the middle 20th century and up to now, that there's so much marketing and so much, so-called propaganda, to put another not so nice word, by the big corporation, the Western corporation, about you must have this, if not, then it's not good, and all those things. Okay, so to me, I think time will come when people realize that no, we have to reduce our consumption. And I think this will happen, and it's happening now, because the world economy is not good everywhere. And I think everyone start cutting back. And to me, that is also one way that we are saving the environment. Okay, but that's on the bigger macro level. Okay, on the micro level, even I changed. I now take the LRT or public transport if I can, because not only about cutting down the carbon, emissions and all those things, but it's also good for health and all those things. So I already started doing that, for the last 1 year. And I do actually produce enzyme for the use of my own house. Of course, what Ida says, I tried doing composting in a condominium. It's very challenging. Almost succeeded, but I know where it went wrong, because of the so-called the combinations, the proportion was not right, But I think the way I look at it is more and more people are more conscious, and they're taking small little steps. And I think during the feast day of St. Ignatius, I basically had a little corner to teach people how to sort out, the things at home, what is recyclable, what is not recyclable, and what you can use it for fertilizer, for composting. And a young person came. Oh, I didn't know that the eggshell, when it's crushed, it actually can be a fertilizer. I say, simple thing like that. And the coffee that we drink the coffee, you dry it after you made it, and then you can use it. You know what he told me? He says, now I understand why my mother did it all the time. That means, the generations before all this consumerism takes place, they were very conscious, conscious of the environment. Unfortunately, because of the constant bombardment about you must have this, you must have that, otherwise you are lacking behind, So people started to basically get into the consumerism as part of their lifestyle. But I am strongly convinced that that is slowing down, and I think we will go back, basically like what the Chinese say, the water will find its own level. And I think that it will come, and it is showing sign that people are cutting back, more aware. For example, you buy electrical things, they tell you the consumption, electricity, small little things. But unfortunately, we live in the developed area, and the developments that we have is not very environmental friendly. The aircon, the concrete building. But overall, I think I'm quite positive that whatever little things we do, every household, cumulatively, it will have a good impact. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. Okay, last but not least, we go to Ben. Ben, your views?
Okay, just to share with you, actually, I was working for a big corporation for 22 years. And one of the reasons I decided to quit after 22 years was deep down in myself, my heart and spiritually, I've always cared for the nature from a young boy. And I grew up in PJ, walked to school, but there was one beautiful part of where I lived and where my school was a little forest called Gassing Hill. And there were a lot of times that I actually ponteng school and never went to school. I hope somebody doesn't use this against me later. But then anyway, I would actually not go to school, but go into Gassing Hill from a young boy, right? And there was a special attraction for me. Actually, to be honest with you, I felt the spirit in the forest from a young boy. And to me, walking in the forest is, I can't express it in words to you, right? And so I quit my job and I decided to do something that was unimaginable. I joined an NGO. I actually joined an NGO, right? Focusing on environmental education. And from there on, I came back to Malaysia, and I was doing that basically. I was teaching this, and I'm still doing it. Of course, I have 2 children. And thank goodness my wife is also the same. She, of course, birds of feather flock together, as they say, right? So I married a person who also loves the environment, and so our children grew up uh, um, going to the forest more frequently than shopping malls. Put it this way, yeah. So the thing is, I want to share something with you. Ida, can you please put up that? Now, part of my work was actually working with indigenous people in Malaysia. I and a few others introduced something to make them tour guides in Taman Negara. And so, uh, of course, to be a tour guide, you have to be licensed. So I was the medium between the questions and for them to give their answer so that I can write it down on the paper. So now what I'm sharing with you is 3 tribes, um, uh, the Jahai and the Batik. The other one, Kintak, is more in Sabah, Sarawak, and Sabah and Thailand, right? They are the sea gypsies, they call them. Yeah. So now Malaysia is so blessed to have this indigenous tribe that actually share the same DNA, or about 3% of their DNA is the oldest DNA on Earth today. All right. And so to me, that is so fortunate. And Nick, please click, Ida. Now, how they live is they look at ecosystem as sacred places, like, for example, the water, the air, um, the mountains, anything that is basically that's earth. Yeah. They look at earth as as a sacred place. And they look at biodiversity as a spiritual belief, right? And that is how they have a community well-being. And of course, they one of the amazing things, just to share with you, right? We as modern humans use the word sustainability, right? But we don't know the meaning of the word. It is actually 2 words put together. Sustain, the ability to sustain. Actually, that's what it means, correct? Now, how these people live is they live with between 8 to 10 families in a, you can't call them kampong because they shift, yeah. So each time a family member passes away, they want the spirit uh, to kind of like join the natural environment, so they move away. And then they move away, I don't know how far away, and then they build another small kampong, and then another person dies, and then they move again. So they keep on moving and they sustain that. That is how wildlife basically moves. Yeah. Wildlife doesn't stay at the same place. They move according to weather, they move according to the cycle, this, that. Now, can you click the next point? If if you look at how we so-called talk about sustainability or ecosystem, if you look at the ecosystem, if you actually you can go and download all this information. It's free for everybody. What it offers is food, clean water, regulating climate, blah blah blah. Pollination. Remember, I talked about the bees just now. The bees, something that we completely forget. If not for the bees, you can't eat the fruits you're eating. You can't eat the vegetables you're eating. You can't do anything without the bees, right? At the same time, the genetic diversity, which is biodiversity, how important they are to us. So I don't see any difference as to, just now, um, I'm I think Ronald brought up, was it Ronald or Ida? I'm not sure. Yeah, Ronald, about the coffee beans and so on. We tend to forget uh, our ancestors' knowledge because we are influenced by the so-called education institution now, which completely never shares this with you, this information. Right? So the roots of life is there. And this is basically what the Pope is sharing with all of us. But I hope, if people can actually see this. Okay, thank you for sharing the slide. Now you can go back to the normal screen. And what I want to share with you is actually we are the servants and tenants of Earth. The ecosystem is the core to our existence. All right. And if we, go on with this way of life, I think it's going to be very challenging for the future generation. And one of the reasons I decided to move over to Krabi, I live in a small area in Krabi, which uh, 3 times a week I get the farmers actually there's a farmers market and fresh produce. I think Ida, you were sharing all that. You live in the city, you don't get that stuff. You know, a lot of us go to the markets or supermarkets and want to buy a leaf that doesn't have holes. That means not eaten by caterpillars or anything. I'm sorry, that is the biggest mistake you're doing. Okay, if a leaf is complete without holes, that means there's a lot of insecticide on that thing. So it is better to buy a leaf that has holes on it. So that's an example of how the multinationals and of course the governments, to me, if the government cannot be corrupted, you don't have a problem. Okay, the multinationals can try all they want, but they cannot succeed, right? So at the end of the day, it is all about the government. But I want to share something very interesting to you today. About 4 days ago, something happened in Malaysia, and a person from Thailand is sharing this with you. The Orang Asli in Perak have been fighting against the government on something, okay, a dam that was being built. And just 4 days ago, the Malaysian court shut down that project. So there is hope. There is hope, right? But this fight started from 2012. It may take time, but we have to push on, keep on pushing and pushing and pushing. I understand, Ronald, you said that we need this and that. No, I think, the multinationals are also changing now. I'm not going to tell you which corporation I work for. It's one of the biggest. And they have changed and they have heard me. Uh, uh, I don't care. I don't care. We are still friends. But, reality and truth is there. You cannot run from the facts. And today, multinationals are also changing. But we have to keep on pushing. Every individual has to keep on pushing. If you really think about, if you have children and you expect your children to have a wonderful life, and for their children and their grandchildren to have a wonderful life. We have to push for this. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne, for all your sharings. As we come to the closing of our session, we would like to put a question for our viewers, right? As you have heard our panelists, how will we collaborate with the Holy Spirit to rejuvenate the Eden God gave to us, which we have abused and lost? Okay, something for us to think about. Huh? How can we collaborate with the Holy Spirit to rejuvenate the Eden God has given to us, which we have abused and lost? Basically, our conversation hour this evening is to ask ourselves three questions. Why I should be concerned about this topic? How can I make a difference? What will I do differently to address all the issues above? So with this, I'd like to end up our session with a short prayer, a very short prayer, to ask the Holy Spirit to bless us and to give us the courage. As we say, come Holy Spirit, give us all the grace of courage to do what is necessary in support of the call of our Holy Father as we hear the cry of the earth. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. And before we end, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our members of the panel once again, Ida Chin and Ronald Hor from AOHD, and also Ben, who's zooming in from Krabi, Thailand. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, and we hope that we'll see you all again in a future conversation hour that will help each one of us grow spiritually and see Christ in creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.